welcome to another episode of Asexualized, my asexual life. This is a place to be for education about asexuality, all things asexual. I share my own asexual life journey in order to help you in yours. If you haven't already subscribed, please hit the great big subscribe button down below, right here, right now. Please hit that bell icon to get notified of every time I go live, like now I post a new video. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as we go along. If you don't know who I am Sandra Bellamy, author of Asexual Perspectives, 47 Asexual Stories, Love, Life and Sex, a celebration of asexual diversity. Really proud of this book. It's 47 real life asexual stories, including my own. And I'm also the founder of asexualise.com and the founder of Asexual Academy, which is the world's first online training centre and school for asexuals and asexuality. So yeah, today's topic, wow, it's an interesting one. So what is asexual flirting and why should you do it? So people really have the assumption that if you're asexual, you never flirt. Asexuals don't really get flirting. They don't really understand it. And so no asexuals basically do that. There's kind of like a myth, right? And I think a lot of asexuals don't understand what flirting is because it's not in their makeup, in their mindset, and it's not something that comes naturally to them. And because they're not sexual, they probably associate flirting with sexual. But there are some people in the asexual community. I've come across some guys, for example, and I'm not saying they're good guys, that flirt with a lot of women. And personally, I don't think that's very good. So this is titled, What is Asexual Flirting and Why Should You Do It? But there's a question mark as to whether should you do it or not do it. And, you know, like, I personally am not going to be attracted to a guy who I know, whether he's asexual or not, is going around chatting up with loads of women and flirting with loads of women. That's not going to appeal to me. And the thing is, if a guy is flirting a lot with me, then I automatically kind of think, well, he's probably doing that with all the women. Because usually there's a pattern. If a guy's very confident, he's flirting with me a lot, it usually means he's flirting with a lot of women. And that is my actual experience with some asexual guys in the past, particularly. They were going around chatting me up, plus loads of other women as well. So I'm not really going to be that attracted to that type of guy, not for a long-term committed relationship, because they're not going to be able to commit to me because they're really rather than satisfying their own ego. So, you know, like, why am I even talking about what is asexual flirting and why should you do it when I've just said, well, it's not great to do it? There are instances where it could be to your advantage. And also, I think it's important you should know what it is so that you could see if someone was flirting with you, for example. And also maybe you do want to do it with them. The reason why you might want to flirt, you know, say you're asexual and you want to flirt with another asexual, it's kind of a way of letting them know that you fancy them without outrightly saying it. And it kind of creates a spark between you. I think probably it's more for romantic asexuals. Obviously, aromantics that are not interested in a relationship, a lot of the time, some aromantics are, but aromantics that aren't interested in romantic relationship, I don't think you would probably be interested in flirting, because flirting is like a prequel to being in a relationship with someone. You're flirting with someone because you ideally would like to be in a relationship with them, and you kind of getting chemistry together, right? So that's when flirting can come in handy. It can create a lot of chemistry between you and another person, so you can have asexual chemistry if you didn't know that already. You can feel like, particularly I'm coming from a romantic point of view now, you can have like romantic chemistry. I mean, you don't really have to do anything sometimes, and you just feel chemical attraction to someone that isn't sexual attraction, but it's like when you're around them, it's kind of like tingly and not normal in comparison to how you would be around your other asexual friends or people that you like, for example. And so you can actually have you can actually have asexual a chemical attraction for another asexual. It can happen, and I don't think that's really talked about in the asexual community that much. But you know, chemistry is really important for any relationship, long-term relationship. If you haven't got chemistry with the person, it's not going to last. There's going to be nothing to kind of bind you together in some way. So having said that, obviously we're talking about the asexual community as opposed to the sexual community. but I still think there needs to be chemistry, even if it's just platonic. So say it was an aromantic who wanted a platonic relationship with another aromantic, you'd have to have like, how can I put it? You'd have to like be in sync with each other. So maybe there wouldn't be so much attraction there in the physical, maybe not totally chemistry sense, but you'd have this, how can I put it, with aromantic asexual, you might have, with the deep platonic attraction, you might feel like you're in harmony, in sync with each other. Do you know what I mean? Like you're dancing together. So you might have this deep emotional connection that's like that. But I think with asexuals, particularly in the more romantic end of the spectrum, you can have chemistry with certain people. You can feel it. It's like a tingling sensation when they're around you. And it's kind of like a warm vibration and an intensity sometimes that maybe you're trying to like suppress a little bit because you're like, oh, this is a bit weird. And so, and it can be like a little bit nerve-wracking, a little bit exciting at the same time. So with flirting, for example, an asexual flirt, like if you were flirting with someone asexually, like if I was doing it, I might say, oh, I really like your eyes. And I might be looking in their eyes, go, yeah, you've got really beautiful eyes. Like that, do you know what I mean? That's like asexual flirting. You're not talking about their genitals, you're not interested in their private parts, but you're really talking about a feature that you really find aesthetically attractive about them. And you might be raising your eyebrows, as in like, whoa, they're so gorgeous, your eyes. And you're beaming, you're really smiling, and the way you're saying it. So there's a difference between saying, oh yeah, your eyes look great, to being like, you've got beautiful eyes. You like, when you're flirting, you change your body language, you like lean in with them, you know, you've got beautiful eyes. Like my eyebrows are going up naturally, do you see what I mean? Do you know what I mean? And you're kind of like, your body language is different. You might be like, I mean, obviously you could do flirting as in touching, but you've got to be very careful with asexuals. Some asexuals don't like to be touched at all. But you could, like, it depends on the relationship you got with the person. I wouldn't recommend flirting and touching asexuals usually, unless you know them really, really well and you're confident that they'll respond well to that. I wouldn't recommend that usually. But obviously, if you were flirting in a physical way, you might stroke their hand and stuff like that. I don't know, like say you're playing pool together or snooker. Like in my experience, like for example, when I was with sexuals, but this could be you could bring asexuality. So say it was sexuals, like a guy would want to show me how to use the snooker cue, not because he really wanted me to use the snooker cue well, but because he wanted to grab hold of my hand at the same time as show me how to do the cue. You could actually do that with an asexual person. But obviously, you know, with asexuals, I wouldn't normally recommend going down the physical route because it can be anything can be misconstrued as lean on to sexual stuff if you're not careful. And some asexuals aren't comfortable with physical contact and touching, so you'd really have to know that person well to know if you can get away with it. But obviously, like in terms of physicality, even like a stroke on the shoulder or like touching them in some way. But like I said, I don't really recommend that unless you're really confident the person likes you back and you're not going to make them feel really uncomfortable and weird. But there's a lot you can do with flirting that can make things exciting with no body contact whatsoever. Like I said about looking in their eyes, you know, like some asexuals aren't comfortable with compliments either. So they might be weirded out by that. But if you get the right romantic person, for example, to do with that with, you'd be saying stuff like that. And you'd, paying compliments, but in a body language specific way that says, I'm really attracted to you at the same time, aesthetically or whatever. That's like flirting as well. And what else? It's really hard, obviously, to try and translate. Like, if I was flirting with a sexual guy, right, we'd be making like comments to each other all the time that would make each other feel excited and like we really fancied each other aesthetically. So that can be translated into asexuality, you know, like, do you know what I mean? It's really difficult to describe it because you've got to be not too physical. But I mean, you know, like, I don't know, like even describing someone's personality, but you use different words like, oh, you've got scrumptious personality. Yeah, I really dig your personality. It's great. Do you see what I mean? It's like my way my face lights up. It's the body language I'm using. Um, and it's the way you make the person feel about themselves. So you'd be paying them compliments. You'd show them with your body language that you really fancy them. You'd make them feel like excited and tingly to be around you more. And obviously you've got to get the right person, because this could complete backfire if they're not interested in you back. You don't want to be doing this with just anyone. You want to be doing it with someone who you have an inkling that likes you back a little bit, I think. And and you could be, I don't know, a lot of the time it's complimenting stuff, and it's the way you lean in towards them and the way you use the body language. But you can't come on too strong, otherwise you're just going to scare the hell out of them, and they're like, what the hell are you on? But like most of the flirting with asexuals for me has been actually in text, like talking about how they feel about me and fancy me and stuff like that. I guess that's flirting. Do you know what I mean? When you're really telling someone, like, I don't know, it could be, obviously you could tell someone just as a matter of fact way, this is how I feel about you, but you could also tell them in a different way, like, oh yeah, like, I think you're very beautiful, how do I put it? It's really difficult, isn't it, to translate it into asexuality. So you know what I mean? But you'd be looking into them more, and like, I mean, obviously, if you're bringing physicality into it, you could grab their hand and say, like, hold their hand. I don't recommend grabbing anyone really, but hold their hand and say, oh, like, oh, you mean the world to me, and you compliment them maybe on their hair, on their appearance, or what's really flirtatious in a asexual ways when you tell them how they make you feel. Like, when I'm with you, oh god, I've got these butterflies in my tummy and I just feel like, whoa, like I'm floating on air. Obviously it's quite romantic stuff, and and you'd be saying like if you talk a lot, if you're romantic and you're talking to another romantic and you bring a lot of romance into the situation consistently, it automatically fires off like sort of chemical reaction in them. It makes them feel drawn to you because you're complimenting them, you're making them feel special, you're bringing romance, and you're like, it's like a tidal wave of romance. But obviously you got to do this with a person you really care about. I don't recommend you doing this with just anyone, because otherwise it can backfire, it can hurt them, because you'll be making them more emotionally attracted to you. Like, flirting makes you more attracted to the person usually if you're doing it with a person who likes you back. So in the past, I've had exes, for example, that flirted with me. Like, one instance was when I was playing pool with them. They really wanted to show me how to use the snooker cue, pool cue, same thing. Not because they really wanted to play the game well, but because they were wanting to put their hands on my hand and hold me and look into my eyes and feel their hand. Do you know what I mean? And so that's a huge flirting. But they might be saying innuendo stuff as well, because obviously I was with sexuals before. But they might be like, I don't know, you might make, like, if it's sexual, then some sexuals will be making innuendo about naughty things. Whereas if it's asexual, I don't know, they might just be saying, I love the way you make me feel when I'm with you. And yeah, it's just like wonderful. And I really, like, I don't know, it's very difficult with asexuality, isn't it? Because you really refer more to their personality than their looks, I think. You really refer more to the feelings and the emotions, and you kind of like make them feel excited in a non-sexual way about you. And you might say something that you're not supposed to say to them. So you might reveal a bit of your feelings for them, and they're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be telling you this. But you kind of say it with a little wink or something. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bit playful, flirty. But yeah, I think this is obviously more suitable for romantics than anything. But like, there are still quite a lot of romantics. And it's like if a guy, I don't know, if I went on a date with an asexual guy, like, what other types of things you might do? I mean, literally, I mean, obviously going to hold my hand's a big one, isn't it? But obviously, some people just like that inside of a relationship or not at all. Yeah, complimenting me on my looks, being right when you're next to each other, when you're sat next to each other, the person's legs nearly touching yours, that is like nearly flirting. But you might end up doing that with your friend and not really realize it because you're just really comfortable around them. But you know, it's like, are you really comfortable around them, or do you like them more? Like, where's your body pointing? Like, when people fancy each other, usually their legs are pointing in towards each other, their bodies are shifted into each other, their eyes are gazing into each other. You know, those are some of the types of signs that the person you're with might fancy you or be attracted to you more than just a friend. Do you know what I mean? And it might be that it's a lot of the time, I think flirting is, you know, how you're making the other person feel, and what you're doing to be naughty. You could be asexually naughty, do you know what I mean? And stuff like this. I mean, obviously I'm a hyper romantic and I do have some sexual behavior. So with me, it's like, it could be like too extreme flirting, do you know what I mean? But I think, you know, like, I think I keep that for in a relationship, some of it. So you can flirt in a relationship. You don't have to be single to flirt. And actually, I think flirting within a relationship with your partner keeps you part of the relationship very excitable. You know, if you're flirting, so like, for example, flirting with your partner, it's very difficult, obviously, to time it, but it might be you sit on their lap. I mean, that is kind of like full on intimate thing, but you could be playful with it and saying, "Oh, I really love you sitting me sitting on you," and that's kind of flirtatious talk, as well as making them think, okay." It depends how far you want to go with it and how grey areas you are. You don't want to force flirting either. No, Heather, you don't want to force flirting either. It's very important you don't do that. Very important you don't force flirting. I mean, you shouldn't be flirting with someone you don't want to flirt with. Don't do that. You know, if someone's just your friend and you just like them as a friend, don't flirt with them. And you've got no feelings for them whatsoever. Don't do it just because of your ego. Because some people, I mean, like I said, I have had asexual guys in the past, and they were just like flirting with me and loads of women. I think that's a danger. If you go down the flirty route, you can be like just so confident that, you know, you could be flirting with tons of people, and you don't really want that. You know, I don't want a person who's like flirting with all the other people, but I don't mind a little bit of flirting with me, if you know what I mean. So you might tell them something you like about them, but tell them in a way that you're not really, you're telling them, but you're like, oh, I shouldn't be saying this. That's kind of like a bit flirty. Like, there's a difference between saying I'm being honest and I want you to know this, to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't be telling you this. You're kind of like looking at them going, you know, I like you, but maybe I shouldn't be telling you this. You're kind of like doing it a bit playfully. I think flirting is very playful. I mean, when I was in my old job, right, which I haven't been, that was like 2017 on FX, maybe done it. One of the girls came up to me and goes, oh, you're very flirtatious, Sandra. Who's flirting you? I'm like, what? And it's because I was very friendly with some of the guy customers that came into my department, but some of them I fancied. I did fancy, you know. So, and basically, you know, the flirting in that sense, because obviously I'm asexual, was the fact that I talked to them for long periods of time. I became really, really interested and showed deep, deep interest in them. And I would be with with my body language, I guess my body was pointing towards them. I was leaning in towards them. I was listening to them. I was making eye contact with them. My face was elated. You know, I was like, yeah, that sounds awesome. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's type of asexual flirting you could do. And like, you know, I had to think to myself, you know, was I actually flirting or wasn't I? But I can come across maybe as a bit flirty, in all honesty. But you know, sometimes I might purposely, like, before I got with my ex, long-term ex, we were actually meant to be really good friends. I mean, he turned out to not be the guy I thought he was, but you know, we used to flirt, like I said, over the pool table and cue. But he used to say sexual innuendo, I think, to me, and I used to say it back to him, because even though I'm asexual, I can still make sexual innuendo, which shocks quite a lot of people, I think. But you know, when I first went on my first ever asexuality meetup in 2015, the two women that I went with, they're like, oh yeah, we can make sexual innuendo as well. It's like just what we can do. And so just because you're asexual doesn't mean to say you can't use sexual innuendo. Some people do. I mean, obviously, You'd have to know the other asexual person really, really well to be able to do any of that sort of stuff, and for them to be comfortable with you being like that. You're more going to be on the more grey end of the asexual spectrum. Like if you've got a guy that completely is not grey area at all, not really that into kissing, not really into physical intimacy, they just want the idea of romance, and it's a very sweet, innocent, non-physical, much contact romance, maybe holding hands, a little bit of pecking. If you did that with that type of person, they would run a mile. If you made an asexual innuendo, they'd be like, well, you're meant to be asexual, you're not obviously asexual if you're making this sexual innuendo. But I like, because I've got some grey areas, I wouldn't make full sexual innuendo, because I'm not interested in a guy, having sex with a guy, but I might say something about him feeling nice when I'm sat on his lap and stuff like that, which is very flirtatious, and that could even be deemed as sexual in behaviour, because obviously when I'm sat on his lap, I can feel something I'm not supposed to feel. But but I don't want that in me. I don't want sex with the person. So you got to be careful. You've got to make sure that you're talking to the right person and they're similar to you. So if I said that to a lot of asexuals, they'd run a mile. They'd be like, you're not asexual if you're saying stuff like that, because most people who are asexual don't really come across like that, do they? Don't really say stuff like that. So, but that would more probably be in flirting in a relationship, because obviously I wouldn't be sat on a guy's lap usually unless I was in a relationship with them. Do you know what I mean? Some sexuals might though could still do that, but I think if you're asexual, you wouldn't really do that type of thing unless you're in a relationship. And many asexuals wouldn't even be comfortable with doing that, to be honest. So yeah, I think you've got to really use your own judgment with the other person. Are you able to flirt with them? Would they be receptive to it? If you try something and it doesn't work with them, you just don't carry on doing it, so make them feel really bad and uncomfortable. But there are certain things you could say about their appearance, their eyes, their hair, their clothes they wear. Like I could just say to a person, oh, that's a nice jacket you've got. I could say that to a friend just like that, right? Or I could say, like, you look really, like, damn hot in that jacket. Obviously means I fancy them, but usually the word hot a lot of the time is associated with sexuals, but you can use it in asexual. You could say, oh, you look very asexually hot in that. Do you know what I mean? That's obviously would be me flirting, saying something like that. Because I wouldn't just say that to someone I didn't fancy. I wouldn't say that to a friend. I'd be like, oh yeah, your jacket looks cool on you or nice on you. Do you know what I mean? It's different language, different implications, different the way you look at the person as well. But you've got to be really, really careful. You've got to make sure the other person gives you an inkling that they like you back a bit and that are receptive to that. Otherwise, they're uncomfortable. It's unjustified. It's really in their space that they don't want. And it could be very unwarranted and very unwanted. And then that could be a horrible situation to be in. So I don't recommend you doing flirting in every situation or all the time or with anyone and everyone. So when it says in this video title why you should do it, I'm not recommending you have to do flirting. I'm not saying you have to do it always or with everyone. I don't think you should. I think you can do it sometimes if you're that type of person, the other person's that type of person, if you want to, and when it's appropriate to. But I don't recommend you doing it as a general all the time. In fact, I don't like guys that do that all the time, because I think if they're flirting with me, what are they doing with all the other women? They're just a pro at it. Do you know what I mean? Because the person who flirts usually is very confident. And if they're confidently flirting with you, how many other women are they flirting with? Like I said, I had 2 guys, asexual guys, and one of them I actually found out had a girlfriend in the end, and he was flirting with me and 2 other women. And I'm like, why are you doing that? He goes, oh, because it's like fun. And I didn't find it fun at all. And that was by texting. So obviously, if you're flirting by texting, it'd be stuff that you would be saying to the person. And you might be talking about kissing them, holding their hand, the way you like to kiss them. That could be come across as flirting. But also, it's difficult, because when you're asexual dating, you might just say as a matter of fact how you like to be kissed. And that isn't flirting. You're just like, well, obviously you'd be saying it to someone you fancied a lot of the time, because you wouldn't really be talking about kissing to someone unless you're actually really attracted to them in the first place. So there's a degree of that type of interest in the first place. But there's a difference between saying this is the way I like to kiss, and if I was kissing you, I'd kiss you like this. Do you see what I mean? You can completely turn it around. If I say I like to kiss this way, that's more matter of fact. If I say to a guy, I'd like to kiss you like this, completely different feelings, isn't it? One's generalization, could be saying that to anyone. One's like, you are the specific person I desire to be with, kissing. Do you see what I mean? They're two different types of scenarios. There's a difference between me saying that jacket, like I said, that jacket looks nice on you, to me saying you look so gorgeous in that jacket. You really do. Stunning. There's a big difference there. Can you see the difference? One is just telling me matter of a fact, like a mate might tell me. The other one is drawing me into the person, making them feel special and showing them off to be the person that's the object of their desire, if you know what I mean. In an asexual way it can be. So it's kind of like two different things. Like if I accidentally brush past my friend, I usually say sorry to them, because I'm like, if you're walking and my elbow or arm touches them, I feel a bit awkward, like I shouldn't be doing that with a friend, even though they're a friend. I kind of feel like, oh, I've gone in their space, so I should say sorry. So I'll be like, oh, sorry about that. I know some people wouldn't bother saying that, but if I've accidentally not, but I can do that when I'm walking, especially really fast with them or getting somewhere, or we're both going somewhere, but we happen to be walking a bit, like end up walking a bit more into each other nearly by accident, because you're just maybe chatting, or people are coming along with their push chairs and you're getting closer together and stuff. I like touching them by accident with my elbow or something. I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry about that, or sorry about that, and get on, because I'm not flirting with them, I'm not interested in romantically. I'm just showing them friendship and thinking, oh, I touched you, I didn't do that on purpose. Whereas someone that's flirting would be purposely trying to be really close to you physically and touching your arm and your shoulder and your elbow and your hand and stuff like that, maybe even your face. A prime example of flirting is, oh, you've got something on your mouth there, let me wipe it off you, like this. Do you know what I mean? And different to saying, oh, did you know you got something on your lips? Yeah, you might want to wipe it off, like, you know what I mean? They're two completely different ways of saying things. So flirting is about actions, about words and body language. And obviously you can, just because you're asexual doesn't mean to say you can't do that. Like there's a difference between saying, oh yeah, I feel platonic friendship for you, and I really love you platonically. Yeah, you really feel me. Like when I talk to you, you really get me. And I just feel this platonic tingleness in me. And when we're together, it's like really magical. And you make me feel so awesome, and I feel just this electric with you. Do you see what I mean? It's completely different. One's like platonic friend, one's like, I really fancy the pants off you platonically. Do you see what I'm saying? It's all about the way you say things, your body language, your facial expression, the way you make the other person feel by what you say. And so, like, personally, I do like a little bit of flirting, but if a guy's doing a lot and if he's used to doing it, I'm just like, well, you're just doing it with all the women. So that really puts me off them. And I'm like, I'd rather have a guy that was making me feel special, but not necessarily flirting with me, if he's going to be doing that with all the women. Because I find it really hard to trust guys with women as it is. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, if they're an experienced flirter, it's like they're experienced for a reason, usually, because they've been doing it with lots of people. So I think, you've got to be really careful about how often you do it, who you do it with, and if it's warranted or welcomed or not, because you could get yourself in a whole heap of trouble if you're flirting with another asexual and they don't want it and they don't like you in that way. It could get you into a whole heap of trouble. You've got to know the person really well. And you can be a bit playful with things to see if you can get away with it without being full on flirtatious. You can see their reaction. Like, if you say, oh, I really like the thing you do with your eyes, they might be like, what the hell are you talking about? Or they might be like, oh, okay, well, what is it that I do with my eyes? Do you see what I mean? Like, if you get the reaction like, okay, like, you know, the person's looking at you because they think you're weird. Like, why are you being like this? You're just my mate or whatever. But if they're rolling their eyes back at you and really making gestures towards you and smiling, you know, they're like, you like what they're, you know, what you're, you know that they like what you're saying to them. So, do you know what I mean? So I think, you know, like, I just want to make it clear that asexuals can flirt. I think sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. When it's like, why should you do it? You shouldn't necessarily do it. I don't recommend that everyone does it. If you're not at ease with doing it, don't do it. It'll just come off all wrong and bad. But I think some asexuals can naturally flirt with each other if they fancy each other. It just comes naturally. It's just something they do without even thinking about it. So, you know, I think there are cases when two asexuals can be flirting with each other a lot and probably not even realise it. But if you're like, because I'm used to what the heteronormative flirting is, I'm used to be able to see when an asexual's flirting with me more. Do you see what I mean? Either in text or in person. Because they're usually different to a friend would be. Do you know what I mean? And what they're saying and the way they're saying it. And I can feel like an intensity around them and stuff. So, you know, I do think flirting's really good in a relationship. I have to say, personally, I kind of think it's a bit better in a relationship. You know, if you're in a relationship with someone, you want to keep the spark alive, right? You want the person to know you want to be with them. And like, even if it's like 8 or 10 months later that you're with them, you want to keep drawing them, making sure that they're drawn into you in a healthy way, not a bad way. So you're keeping the spark alive, you're always keeping them interested. Because if that spark goes, and obviously you fall out of love, that's not going to be very good, is it? And it's harder to maintain a relationship when the spark has gone, isn't it? So, you know, you can have this asexual spark, you know. I mean, because I've got grey areas and I'm quite naughty asexual in that way, and what I say sometimes to the guy, then I kind of am always going to be kind of flirting with him a bit anyway, you know, and being like, I kind of like being naughty asexual sometimes with some of the stuff I say. It's a bit weird for me to say that because I know that I'm never going to want sex, and I make that clear with the guy. But it's kind of like I'm being really flirty at the same time, but just with that one specific person. And I'm saying like stuff to them that if it's the right person, they'll think, oh God, that person really wants me. They want to kiss me. They want to hold me. They want to hug me. They want to hold my hand. They want to be with me. They really want to be intensely intimate with me, you know, without the sex. So, you know, it can be a really good thing in a relationship, but just use it wisely, you know. If you're not the type of person to naturally flirt, you know, you don't have to be that way. You can just be your beautiful self. You can just do things that maybe other people would consider flirting that you really don't, you know, like paying someone compliments is quite romantic without it necessarily being flirty. Being attentive to their needs is very complimentary and makes the other person feel good, you know, without the need for it being necessary flirting, you know. Just talking about a person's personality, what you like about them, how they make you feel when you're around them, like saying you're thinking about them and stuff like that. And you know, but there is a big difference. Like, if I've got an asexual guy that's interested in me or in a relationship with me, if he's sending me loads of love stickers all the time, I love that. You know, it's like constant romance, you know, like love stickering me all the time. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do that with friends, obviously, but with a relationship, they're always like sending me love hearts and love stickers and making me feel like I'm romanced all the time. I think that's really important, like in a relationship, to keep the fire going, to keep the love going, to keep the spark going. Like, you know, I know someone who's in a relationship with another asexual, and they're like, you know, their partners always saying, "I love you platonically so much," and you know, they're always putting kisses to each other and love hearts, and they're messaging each other constantly, even more than I probably would be in a relationship. But constantly, you know. But I don't know, I think it's really nice when two people love each other. I think it's really I really appreciate the fact that I know an asexual that's with another asexual, and they're constantly messaging each other all day. They constantly in, you know, they're like having full on relationship 24/7 with each other. It's really strange, but in a really good way. It's really nice to see that, especially because they've got an age gap as well, a very significant age gap. I think it just keeps the whole relationship alight, really, You know what I mean? It keeps the spark. But you've got to use this stuff wisely. If you're basically being like this with someone who you know you're not really interested in, you don't want a serious committed relationship with, you just want something part-time or temporary, you're gonna hurt someone, you know, because the more you do these type of techniques and these type of things I'm telling you, the more a person's gonna be drawn to you, want you, need you to be in a relationship with you. And if you're not serious about them, that's just gonna lead to heartache and pain. Don't even bother going there. Don't start flirting with a friend you have no interest in just because you want your ego stroking. Don't flirt with someone that you know that really you have bad intentions for. Don't be that type of person. You know, there are enough people like that in the world. You don't want to be with someone like that, you know, or have that person around. So, you know, recognize if someone is asexually flirting with you. Take on board whether you like it, you don't like it. Think about whether maybe you want to try it or you don't. If you're not comfortable with, don't do it. You don't have to do it. No, I think a lot of asexuals probably don't flirt. They're probably just like the ones that really like each other. At best, they're probably complimentary to the other person and they make the person feel special. And that could kind of feel a bit flirtatious anyway, just because of its nature without it actually being totally 100% flirting, if you know what I mean. So use this with caution. Don't, you know, don't use it as a way to manipulate someone or as a way to use someone or a way to stroke your ego, which can happen. You know, like if an asexual guy's like, you know, like the one I was speaking to years ago is from Morocco, and in the end I just blocked him. I'm like, I'm not interested in this guy who's going around chatting me up, chatting other women up, and then I found out he's got a girlfriend. You know, I'm like, you know, it's like, you know, if guys flirting with me, he might be talking about like he could kiss me. He might be talking about his feelings for me. But, you know, like a guy who's going around doing that with loads of other women, why would I want that type of guy in my life? I don't. It's disgusting, you know? And I don't, you know, like probably the last time I flirted really was when I was in the last relationship I was in, really, that totally properly flirted with stuff I said to the person. You know, because I personally feel it's more comfortable for me to do that once I'm in a relationship, totally. But no, I can do it a little bit. I think, you know, like if you're interested in something romantically, it can make the romance more spark driven and more exciting, but it's not necessarily a good thing. Actually, you really want to be getting someone who's not necessarily the most exciting person all the time in the world in terms of making you feel excited all the time, but someone who genuinely cares about, loves you, gives a damn, likes your personality, wants to spend time with you, wants to be around you because they genuinely care about you, rather than because they're falsely giving you all these feelings and emotions just to either take them away again or because they're stroking their own ego. Do you see what I mean? So I think you do have to be very cautious of these types of people that do go around flirting. And I think, you know, why you should do it, the only reason you should do it is if you feels natural to you and maybe in a relationship to keep the spark alive within that relationship. If it's natural, if it's not natural, don't do it. It'll just come off as rubbish, you know. So in general, I don't recommend that everyone goes out and starts flirting, but I think it's important to know as an asexual what asexual flirting is. But obviously it's important to know as well what are the signs that, you know, that a sexual's flirting with you. The signs that a sexual flirting with you, if they ask if you can I have your phone number, they're obviously interested in you and having sex with you usually. You know, if someone's touching you, like a sexual person will usually use touch in a flirtation, you know, like touching some part of your body in like with clothes on, like usually if they're brushing past you, touching your leg. I'm not saying this is right. I don't like some of this stuff. I hate it. It's boundary invasion and it's not good. So always keep your boundaries about you, and it's up to you what you let someone do, you know. But it'll be stuff they say as well about, you know, it might be about your body actually, considering they're sexual. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've had people say to me, "You've got a good body," even though I'm clothed. It's like, do you know what I mean? That's full on flirting. I love you. You know, you got a good body. It's like they wouldn't be looking at my body unless they fancied it. Do you know what I mean? And we're saying like drawing attention to it. Do you know what I mean? There's a difference between saying I find you very aesthetically attractive and beautiful, which you could say that in a time of, you know, like being flirtatious. but like I like your body, meaning I want sex with you. Do you see what I mean? So, but you have to understand that sexuals do flirt a lot with people. There is part of like the process of getting into a relationship with someone. They're flirting. It might be comments they make. This might be like, it might be like they might make jokes but really mean it. Like, oh, like, but if me and you fancied each other, then things might be different, might they? Do you know what I mean? That's kind of like flirting in a backhanded way, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I think there'll be a lot of innuendos with sexuals. But some asexuals have no clue that sexuals fancy them. But if sexuals are giving you like coming on looks, like fancying looks, if they're touching you in any way, making body contact with you, they're usually flirting with you. If they're saying stuff like, oh yeah, so when are you free then next, so I can see you, you know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, they probably want sex, but they're flirting. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't think a lot of sexuals have got your innocence back. Do you know what I mean? Like, they might say, oh, do you want to come around my place? I mean, that means sex usually from sexuals. Do you know what I mean? Do you want to watch a movie? From sexuals, that usually means sex. So I think you've got to be very, very careful about who's flirting with you, thinking about why they're doing it, thinking if they're genuine caring, or just thinking if they're stroking their own ego and just doing it because, yeah, they want to feel good about themselves, basically, and they want to catch you in doing that, So, err with the side of caution. Just know that asexual flirting does exist. I think it's rarer. If you watched the BBC documentary about asexuality, Sex Map of Britain one, this guy will describe and say that asexuals don't really flirt. It's not something they really do, because it's not something that really enters asexual mind. Flirting is highly considered usually as a prequel to sex, as a prequel to getting someone in bed, as a prequel to being in a relationship, and so, but in the heteronormative world, it's usually based largely on sexual attraction and wanting to have sex with that person, getting that person in bed with them. So you've got to really err on the side of caution. And I think the majority of asexuals wouldn't really flirt with each other. But I think there are some instances where some romantics could do asexual romantic flirting with each other if they're both asexual. And obviously, you've got to be aware of sexuals. Like if a woman says like, like my woman's behind the bar saying, oh yeah, so tell me more about yourself then. And she's got fewer customers, she's flirting with you, If she's like, I don't know, if the way she's saying stuff like, I'll come round to yours tonight or tomorrow, you don't really know the person. Like I said, if like say you went into a pub and someone pulled a pint for you, they hand you the pint, that's it. Say someone pulled a pint for you, they handed you the pint, but as they hand you the pint, they grab your hand at the same time. So they put the pint in your hand and they move their hand towards closing your hand, touching it, and they go, there's your pint, and then move the hand away. Do you see what I'm doing there? They're touching you because they fancy you, and they're saying, I want you. That's what they're saying. So you'll be very, very careful. There's difference between like, oh, like, oh, I caught your hand, to leaning on it, stroking it, moving it back. Do you see what I mean? That's flirting, and if a person, for example, in a restaurant, like say a waiter, right, he's got a queue, other customers who means a waiter, right, takes your order, write down, yes madam, right sir, okay, yes, great, there. A waiter who fancies you, oh yeah, right, okay, so tell me, ma'am, what do you do for a living? Right, okay. Oh, and so you on vacation at the moment, or do you live around here? Okay. So you're asking them questions about themselves which have no relevance to the situation because you've just met, you're in a public place, a restaurant, pub, wherever, and they're taking a really deep interest in you, your personality, all about you. They want to on a fact-finding mission because they fancy you. They're like flirting with you, right? So don't think for 1 minute that some of these things are sweet and innocent, because they're not. The way people do things, that it's like, does the circumstance warrant it? I know that if a guy's coming in, for example, like if I was in a job and he's coming in and he starts hanging around me, talking to me for a prolonged period of time when he could be doing anything else with his life. He's flirting with me. Now, I've had guys in my old job, and they will literally, like, they'll come, they'll start talking to me, they'll take a deep interest in me and what I'm doing, they'll start smiling at me, they'll start trying to be closer to me physically, they might ask me out on a date or ask me for my phone number, or they might just repeatedly come back. So I might like go about my daily business, and then they're back in the next morning, and they're like, they're coming in especially to see me. I used to get guys like this in the past, by the way. I'm working, I'm meant to be working, but this guy's come all the way up like flights of stairs to a department where I am, going out of his way to stand in front of me, start talking about my day, what I'm doing, and telling me about themselves. There's no need to do that. It's excess information I don't need. There were situations that doesn't warrant it when I'm working in my work. They'd come back to see me. I had a security guard who years ago was in my old job, and he was just like stood talking to me, and I was talking to him about myself, and then I went to Bristol once, and he said, "Oh, I'm in Bristol, you can come and find me," which was odd. And then I just wasn't interested, because I thought, you're obviously really sexual. And he couldn't leave me alone. Every few months he's messaging me. I'm like, not, I wasn't interested. But obviously, if guys ask you or girls ask you for your phone number when you're out in restaurants or pubs, if they start talking about the way you look, the way you make them feel and stuff like that, when you've only just got to know them, they're hugely flirting with you. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I've got to work out they've got good intentions behind it. Or not usually if strangers are flirting with you, it's because they fancy you and they want to get you into bed, to be quite honest with you. So I think, you just got to work out if the person flirting with you is a good person or not, if they're doing it for the right reasons, if you feel like you want to do it back or you don't. The only time I think it might be good to be flirty is actually really in a relationship, to keep the relationship alive. Like, be a bit playful, be a little teasing with what you say, like, like the way they make you feel. And like, obviously if you're in a relationship, you're more intimate a lot of the time in some ways. You'll be doing more touching and stuff. And like, for example, like a flirt with someone you're in a relationship with, right? They might be working on their computer. Yeah, you kind of like come behind them and put your arms around them and stuff like that. But that's kind of relationship stuff as well. So flirting in a relationship is a little bit harder to find, because you're really in a relationship, you're being intimate with them, which like kind of like flirting is more like a prequel to intimacy. You're insinuating it, you're implying it, that you want it to happen. You're maybe touching the person a little bit on their hands, their shoulder, their arms, but you're not full on doing stuff. And you might, like if you're texting, you might say something like, "Oh yeah, I can't wait to see you tonight. Like, you look great in those pajamas." Like if it was an asexual talking, like, "Oh, I love it when you put your, I don't know, Mr. Happy pajamas on. Yeah, it really does wonders for my brain." Do you know what I mean? That'd be like an asexual flirt. Do you know what I mean? Like, I really love it. Like, you could be naughty and say, "I really love it when you're wearing Tigger pajamas because I feel so bouncy around you." That would be flirting. Do you know what I mean? It depends which way they want to take the bouncing. When they want to take it as sexual innuendo, or when they want to take it as you being just energetic around them, depending on who you're talking to in that relationship. Like, I think that's very asexual flirting. You're like, "Oh, like when I get home tonight, I'd love to break open that chocolate bar with you and feed it to you." That's asexual flirting. Do you see what I mean? There's no like genital stuff involved, but you're flirting, you're being quite sensual sometimes without being sexual, Like, obviously if you're in a relationship, you might say, "Oh, I'll run you a bubble bath." Right? You're not really, obviously, if you're not into nakedness, that might make you feel uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to be naked. You can just like the fact that they're kind of planting the idea in the head. Maybe they do like you naked or like to see you in the bath naked, but you don't have to necessarily do that. They could just be implying that, but yeah, they're making the bubble bath for you to make you feel good, if you know what I mean. That's kind of an asexual flirting thing with people usually who wouldn't be naked, repulsed, who'd like to see the body naked even if they're not having sex, that type of thing. But you could do it in a playful way, in the sense you're kind of teasing the fact you like them physically, but you don't necessarily have to be naked with them. Do you see what I mean? Like, you could say stuff like, I don't know, Like I love the way you move your pen across a piece of paper because it just feels so nice. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It could be it's the way you say things. You can make anything sound quite sensual. But I mean, obviously, some of this stuff could, like you could be saying it to a sexual and it could come across very different. Some of the things. So I think you just got to like really use your judgment, your caution. But you can bring asexual flirting in if you want to. If you want to make a relationship a bit more alive, if you feel it needs it, if you want to bring a bit more excitement, if you want the person that you're flirting with to really like you can bring in more tingly feelings by the tone and what you say. Like you could say, like I remember one of my exes when I was a teenager, he used to say, "Oh, I love it when you do that thing with your mouth." I think he used to say, and like I don't have a clue what he's talking about. I'm like, thing with my mouth, and he was showing me, and I'm like, "Oh, right, okay." And I'm like, I didn't even think about it, but that could be classed as flirting, but also it could be classed as just the person's really interested. Because I think if a guy's really interested in a woman, for example, if we're talking about hetero people here, the guy will notice things about the woman, like fine details that the woman you wouldn't usually associate a guy thinking about knowing. So, like I said, in my case, I apparently did this facial expression with my lips, and the ex picked up on. I mean, I'm talking about a boyfriend I was with like at 14 years of age. I was with boyfriends very early. And it would be something he picked up on, and I was really happy he was that attentive to me. I thought, you obviously really find me attractive if you're thinking about the way my lips move and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Because lips are a very sensual thing. Lips are a very sensual thing, and they're often what people would love to kiss. So if someone's paying attention to your lip area, it's because they usually fancy you deeply and want to kiss your lips. Do you know what I mean? And like a flirting, for example, I prefer flirting in a relationship, or someone you're dating, but you might just like touch them on the nose like that, going, "You got such a cute nose." That's flirting, especially if you're not in a relationship. "Oh, you got such a cute nose," but obviously, if you're in a relationship, it'd probably be easier because they'd probably be more physically comfortable around you, actually touching your nose and stuff. Like if you're kissing someone, for example, one of the things that's really good to do is it's very sensual thing is to move their hair back when you kiss them and touch their face like this. So you're leaning in and touching their hair at the same time. And that makes them feel tingly as well. I think I should be doing a video on what makes people feel tingly actually. Oh my god. But that's for another time. Maybe if I want to do that. There's some people don't feel comfortable with this stuff. But yeah, when you kiss them, if you put their hands on their face or hands on their hair, you bring them closer to you, that generally instills more attraction with the person. It makes them feel wanting you more. So yeah, it's very interesting. I love your Star Wars t-shirt, and I would love to Star War talk with me. I love that, Heather. That's a very flirty comment. I love your Star Wars t-shirt, and I would love to Star War talk with you. I think you meant I would love you to Star War talk with me. Yes, that's very asexual flirty, Heather. You're getting the idea here. Yeah. I mean, you could be naughty. If I was being naughty, because I can do innuendo, I'd be going, "I love your Star Wars." I mean, like that could be, like that innocent comment could be turned into like a sexual innuendo. "I love your Star Wars," and you think, "What Star Wars? My private parts or what?" Do you know what I mean? That's sexual innuendo. So you'll be like, but yeah, Heather's is not sexual. Heather's is asexual. Chat up line and flirting, because chat up lines are flirting. Star Wars brain. Exactly. Yours is geared towards the brain. But, if a person, like, for example, especially if a sexual, like we're saying to another sexual, "I love your Star Wars," that could mean something naughty, like private part. Do you know what I mean? Because it could be like their pet name for it and stuff like that. So, do you know what I mean? I think it's all a matter of perception, all a matter of how you take the subject, all a matter of where you are on the asexual spectrum, all a matter of where you're flirting with another asexual is a sexual that's flirting with you. But yeah, I really love that. I love your Star Wars t-shirt, and I would love to Star Wars talk you to Star Wars Talk with me. I think that's beautiful, Heather. I love that chat up line flirtation thing. I think it's great. Thank you for contributing. Anyway, I think that's all it from me tonight. Until next time, embrace your quirky and each other. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. I really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Hit that great big bell icon to get notified of every time I go live like now or post a new video. Thank you, Heather. Thanks for the thumbs up. If you could give it a thumbs up, it'd be great. Thank you so much for your wonderful flirty comment that's very asexual. I love it to bits. I think it's really good. And thank you for taking part in the show tonight. Thank you to everyone else who's watching. I know I've had some other people watching me tonight. Lots of love to Heather. Lots of love to everyone. And I will see you on the next video or live stream. Take care. Bye. Bye. Night, Heather. Bye. Thanks for the thumbs up. Bye.